Hey, what's up, everybody? Today, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about having ADHD, and I want to talk a little bit more about my experience, of course, but kind of how it's affected my life. And, if you're someone who's listening who also has ADHD, let me know in the comments below, kind of what your life has looked like, when you got diagnosed, kind of what you deal with on an everyday basis. So, ADHD is a little bit taboo nowadays. It's something that people are all kind of claiming to have, right? And whether or not I feel like every Gen Z kid has ADHD, and whether or not they actually do is one thing. But I think it's a little bit overdone in our society today, and it kind of makes it so where the people who actually have ADHD, it's a little bit like people kind of look at it like, oh, okay, like whatever, like really, oh, yeah, like it's not a big deal, right? And for the most part, like of all the things to have, right, ADHD is not one of the worst. So I can say before I get into this, like I'm very blessed as an individual. And while I do have what I would consider to be a relatively bad case of ADHD, it could be so much worse. And I am able to function very, very well as an individual overall. So what I've kind of experienced and going back to when I was a child, of course, I never knew I had ADHD. I just knew I found it. I was really, really difficult. I had a lot of difficulties focusing in school, sitting still. I would do my best to pay attention in class. I can't really listen super well because all of a sudden I'll be distracted by something else. My parents are boomers, and so they straight up have told me many times in my life that they just don't believe in ADHD. I swear to you, they literally have told me they don't believe in it. And but the boomers come from a generation where mental health or whatever you want to call it doesn't exist. They look at mental health like if you're feeling bad, if you're feeling depressed, you literally just grind it out, right? So that's the boomers for you. But back in school, I always really struggled paying attention, especially with words being spoken to me. Weirdly enough, which is something that can also happen with ADHD. Weirdly enough, when I was in college, I couldn't go to the library to study because when I would go there, it's hard to explain, but I could never focus on what I was doing. Any noise around me, anybody who moved, anybody who came into the area that I was in, I had this big impulse to just look. Like, I swear I'd spend my whole time looking around. Like, I'd be people watching while I should be studying. And every time somebody would come in, every time somebody make a noise, I'd be like, like I couldn't help it. Like, I'd be like, oh, well, who's that? Like, I would want to investigate. And so I literally cannot study. I don't know how people go to a coffee shop and get like good work in. It's just not something I can do. Like if I go to a coffee shop and sit, like I'm people watching, whether I want to or not. Maybe it's just a weird thing that I like to do. I think a lot of people like people watching, but sorry, that's besides the point. I'm probably going to get distracted, as you can tell. I'm probably going to get off task. But another thing, like throughout school, like I said, very easily distracted. I when it would come to doing homework, I'd sit there and I'd want to do my homework, or I'd start it, and all of a sudden I'd be like, nah, something else would want to distract me. Like a big thing with ADHD is you kind of avoid or dislike tasks that require sustained mental effort. So this idea of, oh shoot, what do they call it now? I can't remember it. Deep focus work, I think, is the title. Like getting your deep focused work in. And while I can do that now with certain task based things, I think when it comes to creativity, I think with creative things, it's really hit or miss. Like if I were to go and like paint a picture, that is something that I sometimes wouldn't be able to focus very long on. But for example, if I'm playing Call of Duty, and Call of Duty, it was one of those things when I was a kid that I was able to sit and play Call of Duty. And like really with video games in general, I'm able to sit and focus on video games more than I've focused on anything else in my entire life. It's crazy. I can lock into video games just as well as anybody can lock into anything else, which I kind of wish was the same with school for me. Like I just was never able to lock in to, like when I was in college, like a professor I couldn't tell you. I couldn't even sit next to the window in a classroom because I would be looking out the window, and I didn't want to look out the window. I would do everything in my power to pay attention to the professor. Everything I would try to listen to every word they say, not get lost in the discussion. All of a sudden, a minute later, I'm looking out the window daydreaming, and I don't want to be. Like, I wasn't trying to do that. I couldn't tell you how many times that happened. Which I got decent grades. Like, I would consider myself to be a decently smart person, but like, I feel like ADHD. I've really struggled with school. I hate school in general, and for other reasons too. Not because I can't focus, but I mean that's a whole other topic for a whole other discussion. How school is really not teaching you things you need to know in life. But it just really struggling to pay attention when it comes to like staying. And like my wife's the exact opposite. She sat in the front row of her classroom, and she doesn't even know. And I swear this is like crazy to me. She doesn't even know what it's like to daydream. I'm like, have you ever daydreamed before? And she's like, no, not really. Like when she can't fall asleep, I tell her to count sheep like as a joke, and she's like, I can't do that in my head. I'm like, what are you talking about? You can't like count sheep in your head? She's like, no. I'm like, what the heck? Because like I daydream all day, and I envision things and this and that. Like I could get lost in my head, which I guess is another thing of ADHD. And she can't do that, which is crazy, because I'm, like that's all that I've known was daydreaming on accident, really. And so it's crazy. But growing up, I never knew I had ADHD until a little bit later in my life. And then, now that I work like a desk job, like I'm an accountant, it is extremely difficult to stay busy. Like there are people, and if you have like a corporate job, like there are people who always look busy at work. Like they do a good job of looking busy. I am the exact opposite of that. When I get my work done, I look like I'm bored as heck. And because I am, like I can't sit on my computer and look busy. And, like a manager will walk by this and that. Sometimes I'll just be on my phone, which isn't like a terrible look, but sometimes it's not the best. But some people have a really good, like they just do a really good job of just looking busy during the day. And I've never been able to do that. Like I got to get up and walk around. I got to go outside and like walk around my building. And so that kind of helps me refocus and regroup. Some people can sit at their desk the whole day and just stare at their computer and just work the entire day, which I think is actually incredible. I've never been able to do that. Those long periods of focused, deep work, I've never been able to do that. So that's really all I wanted to cover. I don't want to get too deep into anything, but that was just kind of my experience and what I've dealt with the most in my life with ADHD. Let me know in the comments below if you have ADHD or if you don't have ADHD. Maybe we can discuss, like what happens in your life. Are you able to focus for long periods of time? Maybe you can't either. Maybe school was also like awful. You couldn't pay attention in school. So let me know in the comments below. More videos to come, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.